But I'm really excited about today's conversation, today's topic. It is why education still matters for immigrants in the U.S. Why is this still important? Again, welcome to today's episode. I'm excited. My name is Nnamdi Henacho. If you haven't met me before, and I am excited to dive into this conversation today. Why education matters for immigrants, and especially African immigrants here in the US. For most of us, education was the way out growing up, right? It was the only option, it was the only alternative. Now we've moved to this system here in the US, and we see that there are multiple ways to make it outside of, and there are, even back home, there are. Not everybody who's made it went to school. But that was the mindset growing up, as you have to go to school to make it. And so you see that most of us coming here are overeducated, overqualified. Um, for we truly come here super educated. Everybody has at least one degree, and it's not unusual to see people with two, three. I've met people who have two MBAs, three MBAs, and I'm wondering what in the world are you doing? What are you doing with all of that? All right, so I'll start with this question: is the American dream still tied to a degree? Is the American dream still tied to a degree, right? And you can, let's beat it up in the comments if you wish. I'd love to hear your thoughts on that. Again, because that's we've most, like I said earlier, most of us come here with this. We have this, belief system coming to the US. That education is the way it matters to us, right? It was the way out for most of us. It was the only way we got level playing grounds or opportunities, was to be super educated. The more educated you are, the more opportunities it provided for you. And so, but it's the conversation is shifting a little bit, especially for, here you hear people say things like degrees are overrated. Tech pays without college. You don't need a college degree and all of that. Um, and I found an interesting stat. According to Pew Research in 2023, it says nearly 65% of African immigrants in the US hold at least a bachelor's degree compared to 33% of the general US population. So we believe in this thing. This is us. And so somebody coming to tell us it's overrated doesn't sit well. And so that's why this is a question. Does it still matter, right? Or why it still matters? Because I'm already giving my opinion. It does. It's still super important. Uh, and so let me know again if you've been told that your degree from back home doesn't count. That's one of the misinformation things we try to fight in the African American Collective is that mindset that the degree you came with doesn't count. If you've dealt with that or you've had to explain yourself and legitimize your qualifications, let me know. I'd love to hear your story. So, what are some of the barriers we face when it comes to education here, right? When it comes to, especially with the answering dealing with the question around, does our degree count? The degrees you've come with, whether it counts, because we come with degrees, multiple sometimes. We get to some challenges faced include, foreign credential evaluation, right? You have to go through WES and all of that. And so you're trying to standardize your degrees to align with the requirements for the US. And so that's a challenge sometimes. And, it's still always, is it always an apples to apples comparison? Does it always align, side by side? And so it's super important to understand that it's a challenge that we get to deal with. The other barrier and challenge we face when it comes to education is the cost of education in the US. Going to school here is just expensive, regardless of the level where you are at. The cost of re-education is high, right? And so if you have that mindset, you've been convinced that you need to go back to school to, because maybe you're pursuing a particular career path or a particular degree or something, you have that thought around, okay, this is, I want to go back to school. It tends to be expensive. It tends to be expensive. I remember going for my master's degree, and when I saw the bill for my first year to pay, I was like, I started calculating the houses, the houses we could build back home for just one school year. So it is expensive, and you pay by the credit. You see those bills, especially if you pay out of state tuition, it gets expensive. So those are some barriers we face when it comes to education. And of course, there's the language and cultural barriers, especially when it comes to certifications and academic environments, and not necessarily spoken, but or not necessarily written like we all speak English, but it's now that whole barrier of communication in terms of like lingo and accent and every one of that. And then there's also the political aspects of it to the systemic unemployment, right? Where degree holders work in jobs that don't match their skills. That is another barrier we face. So you have qualifications, you have expertise, but you are not able to work in those spaces, because they are because of the shenanigans in the system we have to navigate through or deal with, right? How many people know, one of the things I've seen this for most of the jobs where you come in and you can still find a way to get in. But in the medical space, you have to almost get reaccredited all the time, right? If you're a nurse from Nigeria, for example, and you come to the US, I haven't seen a nurse that just ups and transfers. You have to go through some reaccreditation, recertification. Same for the doctors, and most times, right? It's the same thing for most people. You have to do some additional things to revalidate your expertise, your experience, your education to leverage that for the workforce here. Um, so those are some barriers we face when it comes to just the education, especially here in the US. Right. And then there's a shift in the landscape of education as well. And I want to talk about that for a little bit. Right. Most of our education has come from the traditional, 4-year degree model, go to get a master's degree and then advanced degree. Right. But that's we can clearly see that that is a shift in that lane. Right. And so we're seeing a rise in online certifications, right? Boot camps, trade schools, right? So you see, Google is offering this training platform so you can learn almost anything. Um, Facebook, Meta, AWS, these guys, there's all these platforms, and there's so many other platforms that are offering online certifications for very minimal costs. Um, then there's, like I said, boot camps, a lot of boot camps for very specific roles, whether you want to get into product or any particular lane in tech. You have this different trade schools or bootcamp style trainings available, career training programs available right now. And it's and my take with this is, let's not see this as, well, this is not the equivalent of a degree. It really isn't. It's still forms of education, right? It's just packaged differently. If you see it that way, then it's easier to embrace it, especially when it comes to, okay, I need to add something to what I already have so I can make a headway or I can break into the workforce. Then it's something we have to be open minded to. Is okay, maybe I just need to uh, um, increase, or I need to, yeah, I need to increase my, update my skill, my skills in this area instead of having to go back to school and go get a degree. You already have a degree, right? So how about leaning into some of this non-traditional forms of education to level up and then hopefully get your way into the career you're looking for. Another stat I have here is majority of the students over 25, number of students over 25 enrolling in non-degree credential programs grew by 23% from 2019 to 2023, right? And this is from the National Student Clearinghouse. So older students, again, most of us who are coming to this place come a little older, probably have at least one degree. So your mid-20s, if you come young, to 30s. People in that age range are enrolling more in non-degree programs, right? It's grown. So we have to be, open to that. It can't be college or nothing. It can be, like, again, I've seen people go get 2 MBAs, and I'm wondering, what are you doing with two? Now, I will also admit it is a survival strategy for some people, right? You need to be in status. And so, how do you keep your F1 going? You go and keep re enrolling in degrees. So, I do understand that sometimes staying in school is a strategy to remain in status. Okay, but for people who that is not the case, then you don't need to keep getting additional master's programs and MBAs where you can go through the non-traditional route and up level your skill. I've done so many, uh, um, especially with this evolution into the non-profit world and into business, right? While still being a professional, right? How many degrees can I afford to go back to get? And so I've been part of fellowships, I've been part of, I've gone through certification programs, I've taken, courses in specific lanes, right, to keep upskilling myself. Like I've enrolled in fellowships that I'm paying for. I'm still in some that I pay for, right, to keep upskilling myself. And, again, non-traditional routes, but ways to get yourself, the skills you need, the expertise you need so you can explore the path that you're looking to do. Go. So why education still matters, especially for immigrants. And I want to talk about this a bit more because again, it is don't get to a place where you feel like it's not I'll just grind and grind and it's really not that I can throw my no. I throw my degree and it's not about that in America. Um, Again, there's a part outside of the traditional school route. But it matters. It is super important. And I'll say this is not even in my notes here, but if you look at the landscape of immigration, and I'll talk about this a bit more, um, the US wants the best of the best. They are leading more towards, again, it's the high skill people, it's the people who clearly bring a certain kind of value to the country. Those are the people who preference is given for immigration. If you go through any employment visa routes to get your stay, you would see that there is that bias for degree holding. I remember when I was filing one of my organism, when I was getting my green card process, and the priority period or the waiting period for people who had just a single their bachelor's degree who were going to the H-1B route was longer than those of us who had our masters, right? That was a higher skill pool. And so preference was given. So my priority time frame was shorter than people who are going through who just had a bachelor's, right? So there's that's the system here favors the skilled, favors people who are have a certain level of qualification. They want again, it's designed to keep the best of the best, right? Who are going to bring value. So if that's the goal, then if you're thriving and staying here, then you want to make sure you give yourself that edge. So why education still matters? One, social mobility, right? Degrees and certifications, they still open doors. In many immigrant families, education is a generational elevator, right? It's still the way it's still how you elevate. Like there are still families you go to every family who has a doctor. Parents are very proud to talk about my child is a doctor. Like they want to talk about it in social forums and in meetings in these places. It's still a big deal. It's still something to be proud of, right? And it still opens doors. It's still as we become stronger as a group, these values that matter to us will become prevalent and even more pronounced, right? And so the game is the game, right? We still want to be lawyers, we still want engineers, we still want doctors. It still opens doors. It still gives opportunities. It's still considered in those high, it's still a high tier skill set that elevates you, right? And that's why there are certain fields where yes, there's always systemic things going on. There's systemic issues, discrimination, all of that. But there are certain fields that you still see immigrants thriving and are still the majority because those are very high skill and the people who have committed themselves to applying themselves to the difficulty required to attain this career, successes and career paths, mostly are immigrants because you're desperate for you came here with a level of desperation and then your parents are not going to let you slack off. Right. So if you go to here in Atlanta, you go into most hospitals, one in every five nurses probably African. Right, you go to most of the doctors that will treat you, you're going to run into Nigerian doctors, you're going to run into African doctors. If you go to Texas, right, there's a lot of us in those places who are doing, but again, we have to go this incredibly difficult route. But there's a level of qualification you attain, and then you elevate yourself beyond discrimination, if that makes sense. So that social mobility is, education still gives you an edge, right? There's a level of high skill that you bring that elevates you beyond, because of the value you bring, it elevates you beyond any of the political drama. So education still matters. Another reason why it still matters is credibility and perception, especially in corporates, right? The more qualified you are, once they introduce you as having certain degrees or having a doctorate, it gives you a certain level of credibility that, hey, this person must know what they're talking about. So whether it's in meetings, whether it's, in your ideas being listened to, your qualifications or the papers behind you will always make your voice stronger, right? It gives you credibility when it comes to weighing in opinions, when it comes to your opinions being sought, when it comes to you being, looked upon as a thought leader or, an expert in the field. And so it helps with that in corporates. If you work in nonprofits, again, it helps to have those, PhD behind your name, or MD, like just MD for like it helps. Those certifications, those letters behind your name matter. Right. When especially when it comes again in the professional landscape, not everybody has it. And so if it's in the lane of your expertise where you're trying to give a voice, people are inclined who know about what that certification requires or what that degree implies are more inclined to listen to you because you have paid the price to attain a certain level of expertise that not everybody is willing to pay, or not everybody is able to. It might not be willingness, but ability, right? Whether it's just mental capacity, financial capacity, or just situational things. So credibility is important, and it gives you that. It gives you that. So for the person looking to go back to school again, let the motive, and I'm jumping the gun here, but let the motive not just be, don't think of, don't go back to school or don't go for a degree or a higher degree because you're trying to, like, because that's the way out, right? Or if you're just trying to get a job, um the non-traditional route to do it for you. That's for sure. The non-traditional certifications, trade school route, bootcamp route will get you the job, get you a job. You just need to be solid at it. Uh, uh, but if there's a certain level you're trying to attain, you have a path in mind that you want to explore, a career, maybe a leadership role you want to get into, and you feel like, hey, getting an MBA would do it for me, or getting a master's degree would do it for me, then for sure go for it. Again, it's credibility. There are certain rooms you will not, your voice will not carry as much weight if you don't have certain letters in front or behind your name, right? If that makes sense. So credibility, education, degrees help with that. Education gives you a seat at the table, even if you still have to prove your worth. Yes, you still have to prove yourself, but it gives you a seat. It brings you into the room, gets you at the table, and then you show yourself what you can. You show what you're about. All right. Next reason why education still matters is the economic impact. Um, College grads earn $1.2 million more over their lifetime than high school grads, and this is from a Georgetown University study in 2022. Right, $1.2 million more over their lifetime. So yes, you can make a living without a college degree, but in terms of collective earnings over time, people with degrees tend to earn more. So it matters. It matters. It really does matter. Think of things like certifications, like PMP, CompTIA, CPA. These increase your salary by 10 to 30%. Right. So getting certified does that thing to your paycheck, because internally you have a better case for, and I teach this to my students in my NSTAR Technologies life. The benefit of certification is, a lot of time, is internal, right? When you're trying to have upward mobility within the place of your employment, um, you can go show like, hey, I got certified, and so I am better equipped to do this job. Give me more money for it because I can do it. I'm doing a better job now. I've improved myself, and I have this paper to show for it, right? So there's that economic impact, whether it's in terms of getting a degree, why over the lifetime earnings you make more. upskilling, getting certified, conferences, those also do well for you because again, you those become a negotiation tool that you can leverage, that can use, to um, that you can use for for leverage when it comes to negotiating raises and increases. And so there's that. So the economic impact is there. And then there's also empowerment, right? You are empowered to navigate systems. You understand your rights. You can participate uh, in, civic participation. Is you have more opportunities to play in that realm. Again, as an immigrant, it does that for you, right? If you want to get into certain rooms, that those letters in front of your name or behind do it for you. Um, there's so many stories, I've seen people get jobs just by going back to get certified. I've seen people increase their salary, change careers by going back and going the non-traditional route. I've seen people elevate the opportunities available to them by going for that MBA and all. Just there has to be intentionality with how you navigate this, education, the education routes. Like it has to be it's something that has to be consistent. Again, the system rewards the educated. The more educated, that's the truth. It's going to, you basically want to rise above the level of discrimination. You want to rise to a level, you want your expertise to grow to a place where they don't care where you're from. It's about the value you bring. That's the goal. That's almost how we have to be as immigrants here in the US. The game is the game, the rules are the rules. We play to win. All right. How does this apply today? Um, People always talk about how artificial intelligence is coming for our jobs or your jobs or their jobs. Um, are there going to be jobs lost to artificial intelligence? Yes. Are there jobs currently being lost to AI? Yes. But I always tell people not to worry about AI taking your jobs as much, but see it as a tool. What that means though is the easier to repeat, easy to automate type of jobs, easy to predict kind of jobs, those are the first ones to go, right? So when last did you see in terms of the digital roles now, because people think about robots and all of that, and I think, you know, servers and very manual type jobs, and you see some of that, you go to some places, robots serve you in restaurants now, robot room service, check-ins, and all of those. You see a lot of like robots and machines, and you just go and do your things, and you don't have to interact with the person. That's getting more prevalent. So that's some jobs lost already. Um, but even in the digital space, right, you don't see too many copywriter roles now because of ChatGPT and all of his family members. There's so many platforms. I feel like that's the entry level AI is copy, generating emails, landing page copy, those type things. And so it's something that is with advancements in technology, lower skilled jobs are at risk. And so we need to keep upskilling because I feel like the technology is going to keep evolving. I've been exploring and playing with different platforms that do web design, web design, building of applications. And right now, there are platforms that exist where you don't have to do any coding to build applications. They are drag and drops. Now, in fact, drag and drop is getting outdated. You can prompt your way into an app. You can write prompts and describe what you're trying to build, and this platforms will build these apps for you. And you can edit with prompts. I've seen platforms where you edit videos by editing the text, the transcripts, and it will cut out what you need to cut out. So these are things video editors would pay them money to do, right? Graphic design, it's you upload a picture to AI and it gives you a headshot, realistic headshot, right? True to life headshots, right? So these are all, you know, these are not roles would consider even low skilled per se, because graphic design is not, graphic editing and video editing, these are not easy things to do. Right? But you'd see that with the advancements in technology, some of this type um, skills are at risk or jobs might be at risk. And so we need to constantly stay on top and also learn how to use the technology to our advantage. And that's why that upskilling, again, the traditional, not having to deal with traditional school, but leveraging certifications and boot camps and conferences and the non-traditional education to stay on top, stay a little bit above so that you stay relevant, right? And so as the technology is evolving and moving a certain way, you are on top, right? So that's, education. When we talk about education, still matters. This is how we stay relevant. We still want to stay on top because, again, that is where the value is. That is where you still get to keep your job. That is where you still get to have access to rooms, is when you have the education and the qualifications to be in certain spaces. All right. And so don't be in the low skill category or just the average category. Upskill, constantly upskill, always go to the next level, always evolve so that the advancements don't threaten you or threaten your career or threaten your livelihood, right? Let's not compete with tech. The next thing I want to point out is it's 2025 in the US. Um, there is a lot of anti-immigrant sentiment, right? There's a lot. Like if you're paying attention to the news, and this is, I try to. I'm always in the line between what's the line between activist and advocacy. And I told that line carefully because I know there are people involved in the community that lean different directions, and so that's trying to be diplomatic in my communication. But one thing is clear: there is definitely a rise in that anti-immigrant sentiments. And so education becomes a tool for advocacy and upward visibility. And again, you want to rise beyond, you want your value to be more than the the discrimination. You want to rise above, like, you can't discriminate against excellence, right? You can't discriminate against value. If you are bringing value and you're bringing in dollars, you are going to be okay. And so we want to leverage education and expertise to rise above all of these things, right? And the more we rise, the more relevant our voices become, right? We get to a certain level, your voice can't be ignored because you're making this company's money, you're making the government, you're like, wherever we're found, you are bringing so much value that your opinion counts. And so now you become an advocate for us. And that's one of the things we push for within the collective is we want to become a collective. We want to become powerful together so that our voices shift policy, right? So that our voices can shift or dictate policy to where we have a seat at the table, we can negotiate our terms because we have the numbers, we have the skills, we have the education. If we harness that together, we become more relevant. We create a better system for people coming behind us. And we create a better country for people coming behind us to where it's favorable to them as well. All right. So those sentiments exist, and that's why we need to stay on top. All right. The next point I want to raise is there's a lot of workforce development grants and programs, and it's been expanded, um, in certain states. And so again, that's why we want to make sure we're staying on top of just making sure we're constantly getting educated and re-educated and staying on top. Um, I hope all of this has made sense, and there's portions of this that you can read that resonates with you, and you're going to take action on. Uh, but the main thing I want to leave us with is education is how we stay in the conversation, right? It's not just about survival, it's how we stay in the conversation, it's how we stay at the table, it's how we lead, it's how we become effective in our advocacy initiatives, right? It's how we get the country to pay attention. Education is it, right? So, what are your to do action items after now? One, evaluate your current skill set, right? Where are you at? Uh, um, is there a threat that over time, if technology keeps going the way it's going, do you feel like your job is going to be affected? Do you feel like the opportunities, have you been stagnant? in your career where you've not evolved, you've not gone past a certain level, you're just at the you're just static. Where yes, the paycheck is coming and you're good, but you've not evolved at all. That's a very risky place to be, because if anything, a little shift in the market, a little shift in tech is going to affect you. It's easy to replace people who have been static. You are replaceable if you're static, and so evaluate your skill set, evaluate where you are, and then explore career certification programs. There's so many free ones relevant in your space in your field. There are some free, some low cost ones. Again, go to Google, AWS, Coursera. There's whole bunch of them, right? Explore those platforms. And then if you're in the US, please look into the things we do at AIM. And every week we have our expert series, our mastermind series that we're doing every week. And we have literally weekly master classes. We have programs and initiatives that we're launching next year, to help and drive people to people's just help drive people to upskill and do better. So tap into the resources that we are making available. Tap into the network of people that we have that are willing to share their knowledge and expertise. Um, don't underestimate your degree, right? Learn how you can translate that into the US market. To do some more research. A lot of people just take the first advice and then they run with it. The first is when it tells you, well, nobody does that. Oh, there's no opportunities for you here. And then we run with it. No, do some research. Explore how do I, position myself to take advantage of the degree or my degree, right? What's the market like? Talk to people who are doing that, right? Network, but don't sell yourself short. Don't throw away your degree that you came to the US with. Um, and then stay learning, right? Stay learning, stay up to date, listen to podcasts, audiobooks, right? Attend workshops, immerse yourself in community. Again, the African Immigrant Collective, we have a monthly mixers. We're doing something every week. Gives you a platform to stay connected and see who is doing what in the industry, the direction the industry is going, the market is shifting. You want to know, right? And you get to do that by being immersed in community. All right. So education still matters. And that is because we still matter, right? We're still here, right? That's how we build, that's how we belong, and that's how we bring others with us. So please, I want to invite you again this Saturday. We are continuing our conversation, and we are looking at arrest, convictions, and immigration for African immigrants. And so, Saturday, join our expert series by 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Go on our page. Since this is on LinkedIn, go on the page, you see the promotion, sign up so that you can get access to be a part of it. Make sure you're joining the community. We have an ebook coming out that is going to be a resource to us as we're working on it. And before the end of this month, we're going to release that. To reach out and then just jump on the mailing list, send us a message, and we'll keep you in mind as the first person to deliver it to. And then we're doing this every week. So tell somebody about the sessions. Come and hang out with me every Thursday by 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. I am going to be live just like this, hanging out and sharing hopefully valuable information and lessons with us. I know it's been valuable to somebody. Share this, share it on LinkedIn. Let's keep this conversations going. And I'd love to hear your thoughts, your opinions on this conversation. But again, make sure you sign up for our expert series this week. I would love to see you. Let me know you saw it from this session. I want to keep measuring reach. And if there's anything you have, questions you have, or things you want us to talk about, send it in and we'll add that to our our backlog of topics, and so that with time we'll address those conversations. If there's any issues you feel like we need to address on this forum, please, we're not shying away from anything. If there's valid questions you feel like serves the community, if there's things you want us to spotlight on this platform, this Thrive series that we're doing, right? It's very important that you highlight it for us, Thriving Beyond Borders. All right. Thank you again for hanging out with me. My name is Nnamdi, and I will see you again, same time next week, by God's grace.